Welcome, folks, to episode 209 of The Morgue, the official CorpseFeed podcast. I am Arturo Padilla, the guy behind the face, and with me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. Tex, howdy, my man. How we doing
Oh
today?
man, howdy everybody, howdy Arturo. We're gonna get ready to eat some crow later in this episode. Just as a heads up to all the buddies at home, you're looking at the title of the review, you look at the episode, and just as a tease for what's to come. I mean, at least on my end, I want to get Arturo's feelings on it more. But first, let's get through the coming attractions. We got the newest and final trailer for Venom: The Last Dance. This is the story trailer. This is the one that we'll probably start seeing in theaters more as we get closer to December. Like this is the one, it looks like, right? Like
Yeah.
after this, it'll be like commercials and like smaller scenes or whatever. But dude, I'm in. Like I was in with that first one.
Yeah, me too.
But like, because the Venom movies are fine. Like the second one I wasn't really a big fan of.
Very forgettable too.
But that first one was good. That first was good because it's full on commitment from Tom Hardy.
Agreed.
He's like, because he's Eddie Brock and he's the voice of Venom, so he's like going full at it, and like you kind of respect an actor when they go like full hog, right? It's like when they really throw themselves into it, and it's such a goofy idea with Venom.
Yeah, it's also the only way to really attack it, right? Because as you were saying, it's because of the idea of Venom and how they decided to go about the symbiote in this trilogy. So I really do like what Tom Hardy is doing with it because it's just different, we talked about it when the first one came out years ago. Go back to the archives and listen to that one, folks. Because we both agree that it was just a different and fun experience in comparison to what we thought we were going to get at that time from a Sony Marvel feature. So I am glad that this one looks better than the second one for sure.
Right.
I am curious to see what they are going to do in terms of tying anything together with their Sony universe, because I know Craven's coming out at the end of the year, and then they're also working on their Sony, Spider-Man universe with Tom Holland. So I'm curious if there's anything there that they're gonna try and connect, because it's honestly like it sucks to not get like Venom, this iteration of Venom with
in
Spider-Man, right? Because it would it would work so well, the dynamic, right? Because it's not such a a bloodthirsty creature as in the comic book, right? It's more of a comic relief kind of action kind of star.
This is where it sucks that Sony and Marvel like are working together, because they don't always work together. You know what I mean? Like it's Sony still doing its own thing when it comes to Spider-Man, except now they get to say, but it's also Marvel stuff. But at the same time, no, it's not, right? Like the Venom trilogy is clearly like in its own little pocket universe thing. And then Sony tried to, like, it was a one-sided attempt to like bring it into the multiverse stuff, but Marvel was like didn't support them at all. Remember that post credits where like Venom was looking at that report of Spider-Man and going, "Oh, who is that?"
Yes.
Only for that to lead to nothing, only for
zero. Yeah,
Eddie to get transported back to his own universe, whatever. And it's like, I wish we would have got something out of that. Like the whole like, I wish, like we could have got. It's wild that we're getting a Venom trilogy. See the words, right? The words Venom trilogy,
right? That's wild.
Are wild. First, that's wild. Secondly, it's like we're getting 3 Venom movies without like Spider-Man, without a single dose of Spider-Man, and that means
crazy.
And that sucks too, because like we're getting this Venom. And possibly if this is the last dance and it's the last version of this Venom, we're never going to get to see him with like the big spider logo, like in the comics and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that's the stuff that sucks. And you're so right. Why it's such like a missed opportunity to like
Yeah,
not
like
have this version interact with the Tom Holland Peter,
well, like, what's the
or
point?
another Peter, right? Like there, you
Yeah,
have
or some iteration of a Parker, right? Like, or something, and I think it's kind of like in retrospect, right? After just hearing the Venom trilogy without Spider-Man, it's like, wow, like, what's the
this is
point, you know?
a wild
Like
thing that they did. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy, and, like, I think it's a huge missed opportunity if they don't, like, tease a little bit of that spider, suit
Yeah,
thing, because it's like, what are we
it's
doing
gotta,
here?
and that's what sucks. Because what sucks on top of this is that if this is the last Venom, it's cool because we got Null for comics fans might know, but for buddies at home who don't know, that's the creator that Venom's referring to. It's like it's this whole arc called like the King of Black or King in Black or something like that. But Null is basically like the super symbiote, like he's the hive mind, basically, like the king of all that, and like that's the long-haired guy in the trailer.
Yeah, I've
So
seen pictures of him,
yeah,
from the
he
comics and stuff. He looks like a cool
he
character.
he looks super cool, and it's just like, well, I guess we'll see how that plays out. But no, like
Yeah, they
we're
got
getting,
Reedus to play him too. Norman Reedus is playing him or
yeah,
something like that.
reportedly, that's the thing. It's we don't know yet if that's like the thing, because it's like, is it really going to be him? Is it going to be like a CG him? Because it's like, is it going to be
Yeah,
all like goop or whatever?
it's gonna be
And
freaking Jared Leto.
yeah, yeah, and no, the funny thing about all that is we're getting all that Spider-Man stuff, and then or this Venom stuff, the symbiote stuff, and then we're gonna get Spider-Man 4 eventually, and of course in Spider-Man 4 you can't. That's another one where it's like you can't do another Spider-Man trilogy without black suit Spider-Man, right? So it's like we're gonna get a new version of Venom and a new version of all this, and it's like, man, like Arturo said, it was already here. You already had it. You already had a Venom. You already had a
Yeah,
perfectly laid out Venom for this.
you
And
did the hard part, right?
yes, yes. And so now
You
you got to
actually
do
made
it again.
Venom work on the screen, you did the hard part, and you got a
Yes,
fucking, like, A-list actor behind it too for all 3
yes.
movies,
On top of that, and and
Yeah,
they're the ones that people like. It's not like Madam Web where it came out and people instantly trashed it. It's not like, Morbius where people joked about it so hard that Sony thought people were being serious, and it's like,
Morbin time, guys.
yeah, but Venom was legit. Like people like those movies, and this third one, it looks like they're gonna do fun stuff, and I wish them luck because a third one without Spider-Man,
Crossing my
that's
fingers,
I
crossing
mean,
my fingers.
that's a tall order.
Yeah, listen, like, oh, man, like, not even, like, a newspaper article or,
Nothing.
like,
Yeah,
just, like,
nothing.
nothing, and,
Just that one credit scene where he
it
saw
sucks too
that
because,
that
like,
pic.
Eddie Brock too, right? Like, even in part 1, we saw, like, he's legit this investigative reporter dude, right? Like, why not have, like, on his desk or something with his pictures, like, some shit about Spider-Man or something,
Yeah, and
right?
now he's
Like
just like a homeless guy, like because of Venom. Like Venom's ruined his life.
yeah, like, legit, But again, like, that's cool shit. Like, I like that because, like, it's a very bleak, but also, like, very true thing. It's like, yo, like, you're just possessed by this, like, alien, right? Like,
Yeah, you
how
wouldn't be like
else
paying your rent,
yeah, how else are you gonna be living your life? An alien who requires blood too, right?
Yeah,
Who
yeah. If
requires,
you're
like, human meat and stuff like that,
That's
so
true. If you're going around killing people at night, you're not going to be like, "Oh, it's time to go to work.
yeah,
Time to clock into my shift at McDonald's." It's like,
exactly.
no, your life has changed. I think you're right, Arturo. Like
It's like, "Oh, I gotta hop on
it
that Zoom call now," like
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, I got a meeting at 9. I gotta be
oh,
bright. I gotta
man.
be up bright and early for it. Let me just kill this guy real quick at 3 in the morning, to feed my alien.
Yeah, pretty much, right? It's
Yeah,
wild shit, man.
and so on the other end of that spectrum, we have the trailer and like release date and everything. Like this was the first hardcore look at Salem's Lot. This is
Yeah.
the remake of an adaptation, or I guess a new adaptation of Stephen King's original work. I will put out right now that I have no idea. I've never seen that first movie. I never read the book. This will be the first one that I have any experience with, and I'm gonna watch it because it's coming to streaming. Like it's coming to Max in October. So like
It's gonna be free right on my lap, so it's,
yeah,
you know,
instantly, right? Like
yeah.
instantly I was like, well, that's a watch. Like it
It gets points automatically, but that's a
yeah,
big topic that we've always, talked about, right? Like, if you have this kind of content, especially being a movie, because it is a movie, it's like, it's
right.
not a TV show or a miniseries or anything like that. It's a straight up movie, and it's like, yo, we're dropping it on Max. I'm glad they're dropping it on Max and not like canceling it like Batgirl, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
this probably does have some kind of promise to it. I do remember seeing the original one a while ago. I don't have any feelings towards it, either negative or positive. So I'm gonna go into this one fresh and not watch the old one because the old one is available on Shutter now for those of you guys who want to watch it. But I think I'm gonna skip that. And because it's also 128 minutes, so I'm definitely gonna skip that,
Yeah.
and just wait for the new one because I'm a big fan of Pullman, man. I like Lewis Pullman. Um, I like his work, I like his character, and I hope it's successful for him because I think he has a nice bright career ahead of him. So
Yeah, because Stephen King adaptations, we talked at length on this show about them in the past,
yeah,
and
man.
like they could really go either way. And that's the thing. It's like I guess it depends on like the director or whoever's handling the material, but like they and then on the other hand too, it also depends on the material itself, right? Like
Yeah.
I've never read that original Salem's Lot story, but like, what if it's trash? Like, and what if it's like you're doing the best is what you got.
Yeah.
It's like Maximum Overdrive, where it's like, yeah, that story was like not the greatest, but also Stephen King's involvement and all the stuff he was doing recreationally around that time, reportedly, allegedly, is what led to the movie itself
Green
kind
Goblin
of
truck, baby.
yeah, like it elevated what was probably like a dumb original story. But then, then you have material like The Running Man, where like, yo, like the short was like, yeah, it's a cool idea, but then the movie took it to like a whole new kind of level, right? And it's like,
Yeah, I love that movie. So
and
good.
that's the thing, those are the best of the Stephen King adaptations, like your Doctor Sleeps, your Shinings, the one where they look at the material, and a director, a
Thinner.
creator, yeah, a thinner
Thinner.
a creator will look at that and be like, all right, well, how can I turn this into my own thing? And then they do it. So, well, I guess we'll see what Pat Salem's Lot goes, right? Is it
Yeah.
going to be like, oh, we need to adapt everything for the book? Or is it going to be like it chapter 1 from 2017, where it's like, yo, like, let's do the direct adaptation, but also let's
Let's
do it
make it
good.
better. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Let's actually do it good this time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great, that's a great point. But it's true though. I am very curious to see what um comes out of it because we've seen lately that his works are hit or miss, right?
They really
Um
are.
the Pet Cemetery remake wasn't the best. Um and then there was a Pet Cemetery sequel after that
Yeah.
as well, you
Was it
know.
wasn't that worse? Was that the one with Pam Grier in it? No, was it Pam Grier?
Was it? Yes, yes. She
She
was
was
the
a
mail lady.
sheriff, yeah,
The
or the
mail
mail lady.
lady. Yes,
Yes.
that's the one. That one had some potential in it and just completely was like, "Oh,
Because
you know
she
what?
she
We don't
killed the
wanna
dog
fulfill that
off
potential."
screen or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like her whole thing like happened off screen. And then I remember that one because you and
Mhm.
I were joking. Oh, so they only had her for a day, and they're like,
Legit.
what can we?"
It's like, "Yo, we got Pam for 8 hours.
Yeah,
What can we do right now?" You know, we have one she doesn't have a wardrobe change. The only yeah, she does actually she comes in all tattered up after the dog attack,
right.
right?
Yes. So
That's it. That's it.
so you got to factor in makeup time, right? So it's like, yeah, like we got to do that. We got to put her in the getup, and we have to film her scene, like where she's like scared of the thing before that. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah.
So again,
But,
Stephen King
yeah,
adaptations are a hit or miss.
they really are. Yeah,
As Tex mentioned, you got your good ones out there. you also got your bad ones. And like I I understand before we move on from this topic, I understand, making this, but it's like, can we do something that hasn't been adapted yet from his books? You know what I mean? Like, can we do something different? Um, like that adaptation of the adaptation of the adaptation, like this is what happened with that Children of the Corn that came out like 2, 3 years ago.
Right.
Disgusting, terrible. Like, why are we doing this again if the first one wasn't even that great? You know what I mean? So like
I
the
think it's
idea is
that
not even that great. So it's I am very curious to see how it turns out. Um, but I am getting a little bit tired of just grabbing from the same, you know, sources that of especially if it's already been made. It's like, okay, cool, let's give it a break. And this is a perfect segue for our future presentation. So now folks, we got one for you. It's not a double, but we got a good one for you guys. Next up in our future presentation. And we are back for today's feature presentation. We are covering the anticipated remake of the 2022 Danish horror film Speak No Evil. You can catch that original one on Shutter, and you can catch the new one in theaters now. So just straight up before we start talking about it, um, you know, you guys know us. Stay away from it means you stay away from this thing. Wait for it. You can wait until it drops on a streamer, and pay for it means you can go after work and go catch this thing in the movie theater. And I am gonna give this thing a pay for it. Just off the bat, I think I will describe all my feelings later on, but I was very happy how this movie turned out, and I'm very glad I was wrong about my feelings towards this movie. But just before we get deeply into that text, what do you think about this movie? Stay away from it, wait for it, pay for it. What say you?
I mean, yeah, I have to concur with Arturo here. It's like I teased in the beginning. We Arturo and I are gonna be eating crow because Speak No Evil, we have been trashing this movie basically for this entire year, right? Like this and look, in our defense, can you blame us, right? Can you blame us? Because first of all, it's got a stacked deck against it, right? You're remaking a film that came out 2 years ago.
2 years
You're
ago.
you're remaking a film that's, yes, it's foreign produced, but also there's a lot of English in it, so it's like, it's not exactly like it's a completely new language type film, right? So on top of that, you have trailers that come out through the entire, like it. I don't remember when they kicked in, but when they kicked in, they stayed in. Like we got that first Speak No Evil trailer, and we kept seeing that for like basically once a week, every week for the last few months. Then we got the second trailer, and then we saw that one instead for every week for the last few months, to the point where in seeing Speak No Evil, I was ready to see the Speak No Evil trailer ahead of the movie because it was we had seen it so many times before that.
Yeah.
This is all preamble and setting the table, and to concur with Arturo to say that, yeah, I agree. I also think like it's a straight up pay for it. Like I think
Yeah.
I will say I've never seen that original one. Arturo, we're gonna get into that. Like I have so many questions. Like we're gonna do a full spoilery comparison
I have
because I
questions,
haven't.
I have answers. So
Yeah, I haven't seen the original. Arturo's gonna lay it out for us here, but in this film, like I think like the second act sort of drags a little bit, but I think that's because of the trailer. Unfortunately, I
yes.
think it's because of the twist getting you in the door. It's like if you it's a hard line to like toe, right? Because you're like you want people to see this movie, but you also want to tell them that something is going on so they go see the movie and build that intrigue, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
at the same time, if I didn't know the secret, or if I didn't know how far it was going to go, maybe like maybe the watching the movie wouldn't have felt I wouldn't have felt that drag. It's really hard to pin down, but like I do think the drag in the middle is because you're aware of what's going to happen. So the whole time you're like waiting for the shoe to drop, right?
Yeah.
You're waiting for it to kick in. You're like, okay, when is the about face going to happen? And I think that's part of the makeup of this movie in that you're waiting for it to happen so that it does take a long time, and so that's really the only major flaw that I have to say with this is the fact that you're kind of waiting a bit too long. But also, once again, like I said, is it fair for me to say it? I have no idea, but that's just something that I experienced when watching this. It's like, well, you're making me wait a long time for a thing I know that's going to happen. So, but if I didn't know it, would I enjoy it more? I don't
Yeah.
know. It's hard to say. But
Yeah.
but in watching the movie, in sitting there, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, when is it going to happen? But when it does happen, it happens great. Like that's the thing. It's we talk about slow burns all the time, Arturo, right? Like the the benefit of a slow burn is that when it pops off, it really pops off and you're really into it. It feels like it built up to something. But the catch with the slow burn also is that you have to build up to something, right? You have to
Yeah. Exactly. It
happen.
has to be a payoff, you know?
Yes. And
Yeah.
with Speak No Evil, I do think there's a proper payoff. I don't know. What do you think, Arturo? How do you feel about it? Before we even get into like the real nitty-gritty spoilers, but how do you feel about the payoff?
I really like the payoff, in comparison to the original. I was telling Tex
Mm,
off
mhm.
air, after I saw the movie that, this is pretty much a completely different third act than what you get in the original. Two-thirds of the movie, feels very similar. It has, the same beats, just looks a little different, you know, but they're all kind of leading towards um, the same reveal. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But um, in this one, what I found very curious off the bat too, because I remember talking about it here on the cast when we first talked about the teaser, was that hey, they showed the little boy with half his tongue missing in the teaser. That's a huge reveal in the original that hey, this boy has a missing tongue. Like the entire time you have no clue what's going on with him. The parents in this version and the American version give it like some kind of speech
Yeah,
impediment name or something or
they
other,
say it's like they say he was born with like a smaller
a
tongue or
small
something.
tongue or something like that. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, I forget. I don't think that's exactly what they use in the original. Um, but I do remember that you don't know about the kid's tongue until like you're deep in it. And then you're like, oh shit. And once you find out about the kid's tongue is when you find out how shit's gonna go down in this movie, you know?
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
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 because in this version, he as you see in the trailer, he does open his mouth to like kind of try and make a noise in
yeah,
front of the dad or in
yeah,
front of the and it kind of freaks him out, but it's also not something that raises too many alarm bells because in this new one, the McAvoy and his wife like they do say, oh, he's got a smaller tongue, and they kind of explain that. So
yeah.
it doesn't set off as many alarms as you would probably think from that kind of
Yeah,
situation,
because
right? But
it's also said, like, pretty early on, like, when they first meet,
yeah,
that, the kid has, this quote unquote "small tongue" going on. So, that aside, like, that's a huge reveal in the original. So, I did say on the podcast that I'm curious what they have in store for us if they're already telling us this, right? So, what they did have in store for us was a very awesome 3rd act, that
yeah.
completely
So
changes um, the entire kind of movie, in
yeah,
comparison to the original.
yeah.
So,
So full spoilers because
yeah,
I
full
think
spoilers for sure, right?
yeah, 'cause I think that's the best way to talk about the
Yeah.
third act is to
So
just like really go into it.
so before we go into the 3rd act, one major change that is definitely prominent, and stands out is how the main couple,
Mm,
um,
mhm.
are built, right? In the original, that main couple, they're really, like, doormats and pushovers and very, like, don't have a backbone or anything like that. So, in this new one, they try to kind of, like, um, push the idea that these people are a little, like, too gullible kinda thing or, like, too, like, open or, like, too, um, too trusting is the proper word I should
Ooh,
say, right?
I do like that because,
Yeah.
I can imagine how annoying that would get in
Dude.
terms of, like, as a viewer, right? Because like,
Yes. Yes.
because we talk about this all the time when we're watching horror movies, right?
Mhm.
You talk about the logic of a horror movie and that characters sometimes just need to make dumb decisions to make the movie happen. Like that's just
Yes.
part of being a horror movie, right? But I can see in this situation if the main husband and wife were so like I don't yeah, we're just agree, like blindly agree to everything
Yes.
that is
Yes.
presented to them. I could see how that would get annoying because by that point, you like by a certain point, you'd be like, well, wait a minute, why are you just like yeah, it's like, yo, come on, like
Especially, yeah, like, especially, like, as a parent of myself and the movie, their parents as well, and in the original, they just showed this complete, like not they, the story, the way their characters are built shows this complete, like, lack of action, as a parent and as a human being in that
right, right.
situation. Like, you're like, "Hey, you didn't do anything to try and prevent this." So, it's funny how like McAvoy says when asked by, the people, "Oh, why are you doing this to us?" And, that's the same thing, "Because you're letting us." You know what I mean? That's also part, like, of the original. It's like, "Hey, you are letting these people legit do this to you, and you are doing nothing." And your
And
inaction as characters is very, very frustrating because it's like, no, like, why are you even like here doing
so
this? Like, yeah,
so it's like so it's punishment because of that inaction, right? It's
yes,
like you in
yes.
the horror movie sense, you're being punished for your sin of be like not doing anything, right? That is the
It's like,
horror
hey, you
movie
trusted
code.
us. That's your
Yes,
fault. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
and I can see in that sense where it would differ in the original because here when he says because you're letting us, it definitely comes off more sinister, right? Because of what Arturo says in this version we see they're pretty proactive in terms of
yes,
like their lives and their decisions and their child. Like one of the things I liked, you see it in the trailer too, is that when the boundaries start crossing over, you get I forget their names. That's the only thing in reflecting on it. I'm like, oh, I just remember James McAvoy's name. Like I just called him James McAvoy. That's just
I
James
just know
McAvoy.
Patty. That's it, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, Patty. But like when Patty and his wife would like start parenting, they parody Agnes, and she's like, "Yo, what do you don't talk to?" It's like, "Don't tell my daughter what to do." It's in the
That was
trailer, right?
great. That was great.
And
I like
it's
that scene.
it's little stuff like that where it's like, "Oh yeah, that's good because it also shows that they're active and they're paying attention to stuff. It's not just like, and I do like that Mackenzie Davis, her character is like kind of keenly freaked out by the whole thing immediately. Like
Yeah,
I do like that because once again, we hate this stuff. We hate when characters just kind of go along just
yeah,
because, right?
yeah.
I like when someone's sitting there going, "Hey, this
And
isn't right." Right.
And dude, it's crazy. It's crazy because like I'm glad you brought that up because in the original, like they just the characters are such that everything's just they're led pretty much by the hand by this couple, right? Like
Okay.
there's no push whatsoever. Like how Mackenzie Davis's character in the new iteration, how she is able to kind of respond and be like, "Hey, like, get away from my kid," and all that stuff, like be the proactive parent. That doesn't really happen in the original until the scene where the daughter ends up in the other couple's bed, right? But in the
So that
original
happens in the original too?
but in the
Where
original, um, uh, the dad character, the antagonist, he's completely naked. So that's when the mom
Oh.
freaks out and she goes like, "You know what? I can't do this anymore. I've stayed here for a while. I've played along, but this is, that's it." You know?
I
Um
so in this one's credit too, I do like that it doesn't take McAvoy being fully naked for that to be an issue because it is an issue
It's an
regardless,
issue
right?
regardless. Yeah, whether they're clothed or not, it's an issue regardless. So, I am happy that they made that choice. So because in the original, it shows like the kid pretty much sleeping next to like a naked Patty and his wife,
Yeah, yeah,
because the
you need
wife
to
was
do all
also
that.
like in like
Yeah,
her lingerie or underwear or whatever as well, like in the original. So, um, the characters are very different. So that kind of changes how everything unfolds in this movie. So,
yeah. I
um,
I like that. I like the push
yeah,
and pull because that's the thing
yes,
too. Is
agreed.
that while it does take a long time, longer than you'd hope to like eventually get to the payoff, when looking back on it, it was a lot of like really kind of like tense back and forth, right? Because
Yeah,
you'd get little moments where the couple would pull away, but then Patty and his wife would like kind of try to dig in a little bit
yeah,
more, and like they'd be like, oh well, don't go away yet, because like the sleeping in the bed scene, right? That was
yes,
going to be it, and
yeah,
that before, but they were able to talk them out of it and kind of calm them down, and then you have the husband going, look, I really need this because you were, and then it's their side plot too of the husband and wife, right? Of like,
yeah. It's like
yo,
I
I need
found
this because yeah,
inappropriate pictures on your phone from a coworker or
and
whatever.
and he's playing that look, I need you to do this for me card because I really like he's having a good time. He's having a good time with Patty. Nothing seems to like really like set him off, but he's like drinking and stuff, but she's like, yo, what's like this is wild stuff going on. But he's like, yo, just do this for me because you it's that kind of vibe, right? Of like, yo, you kind of owe me. We're in this situation because, and
Yeah,
they're both like already fighting and like, yeah, it's good, man. It's a good like push and pull because then yeah, Patty like because there are some times where they kind of act like a traditional couple, but also, in a way where you'd be like, oh, okay, I can see why the like how they would charm people into like kind
yes,
of going
of
along with this,
course.
right?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, of course.
And then
Yeah. Um, Yeah, so that's a great way to put it. Like they do kind of charm their way um each time back into their good graces, right?
yeah.
So like every time there's an incident where it's like, wait a minute, that's not normal. It's kind of weird actually. I think I'm good. They're like, "Oh, but this and this and that." You know what I mean? Like off the bat like Louise, I think that's her name. Mackenzie Davis's character, she's a vegetarian, right?
Yes.
So like off the bat, they're like, "Oh yeah, we killed our prize goose or hen, whatever it was, and we cooked it just for you." And so like obviously like it's mind tricks and mind games from these people already, because as Patty said, he loves the thrill of the hunt, right? So the
Yes.
baiting of his victims and all that stuff, and he does have victims. And like I just like the way how this version um plays with the character dynamics better. I think
Yes.
because the Americans like have this just stronger presence than what the Danish characters had in the original. Like whether it's because of just nationality or just because of how, people from America are kind of looked at, because there are a couple from America who moved to England and they lost their job, so they kind of are just hanging out in Europe now, trying to find their way pretty much. So
Right.
like I really like how they're like, yo, we're not doing this. This is not cool, And again, McAvoy's Patty, his character is so like Sly Fox that he's like he'll just coerce his way through through, like, entire conversations and lies and stuff. It's just
Yeah,
so awesome seeing it play out in this
dude.
version because 'cause you're like, "Oh my god, this guy's so dastardly," you
Yeah,
know?
and that's kind of worth the ticket in my
Yes.
opinion, because like
Yeah.
McAvoy's pulling in like a he's doing incredible work in this movie, right?
And
Like
then
it's
to
yeah.
pay off his incredible work, we get this really awesome 3rd act.
Oh yeah, let's
I keep
get into it,
saying
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
we get this really awesome 3rd act that pays off all his hard work as as this, antagonist who's been legit playing mind games with this
Yeah,
couple, you know?
and the whole time there's this lingering sense of like, oh, he's something's going on under the
Yes.
surface, right?
Yeah.
And that's that was the hook of the trailers. You see McAvoy, and you see that like the scene in the trailer that they kept playing a lot was that one moment of him smiling, and then kind of like it kind of fades for like just a second, and then it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
back, and it's like there are many more moments like that in the actual movie itself. There are so many small things that McAvoy does with like just in his face, in his performance alone, where you're like, yo, like, and the fact that he can turn that aggression on a dime,
Yeah, yeah.
it's so cool. Because then when you get to that final act, as Arturo said, that third act, when basically the whole reveal is like, okay, so we got to lay it out. I do want to know where the differences kind of start in the third act,
Yeah.
because like Arturo's been teasing, the third act is entirely different in both films, and so in this version, the daughter finds out from Ong, I forget it, like his name, it's like Ong or something, right?
Ant.
From
Ant?
Ants. There you go.
Yeah.
I heard Aunt the whole time, but
I think
yeah, Ant.
Anthony's his name, they call him Ant, I think.
Yeah, so he tells Agnes that his tongue was cut off, and he shows her this room full of like all the leftover stuff from the people that they've killed, and he shows the photo album, and like she takes pictures of those pictures, which is like it's all smart kid stuff, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's smart character writing, because then she tells her mom right away. She doesn't panic either. She kind of like fakes having her first period to like kind of privately have
Super
a
smart.
conversation. Yeah, have a
Super
conversation with
duper
her mom.
smart, super
It's
duper smart, yeah.
it's super cool. And then like the mom, like Mackenzie Davis, figures it out, and she's like, "Oh crap!" And then she tries not to panic either, pulls the dad into it, and they all kind of like there's this tense, really tense goodbye, right? Because like first the tire goes flat, and you're like, "Oh, did he flatten the tire so they would get stuck there?"
Yeah.
But then like he switches out the tire with nothing
He actually
happening.
changes the tire for them, legit.
Yeah, yeah, and like, but then he puts like the kid's bunny up on top of the roof. There was a whole thing about like they would have gotten away earlier in the movie had it not been for forgetting that
Oh,
bunny. So like, oh, there's that
that
whole other
scene is
level
so
to
frustrating, it's more frustrating in the original, um, because, just like in this one, you know what? They're both equally frustrating
it,
because
it's bad. I was like, yo, tell your kid to get
like,
over it. At that
dude,
point, I'd be like,
you're
look,
out the door already, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
You're so out the door already, but then, totally, but, they were about to just, in the original, the dad was like, "Yo, fuck that fuck that bunny. Let's get out of here." But then, the wife kind of coerces him to go back to get it. It's something along those lines. In this one, the dad changes his mind and he's like, I gotta go back to get this thing because Mackenzie Davis's character was the one saying, hey, we'll get another one. You'll get over it, you know? So she is the one in this story that kind of just wants to keep going, right? Who cares about the tantrum that this kid's about to throw? You know what I mean? But
right.
the dad just as frustrating as the original. Oh, let's turn back after we made such a clean getaway,
Yeah, it
right?
was. Yeah,
And you were
it's
already out of the compound and all that, already on your way back home. You turn back, dude. You turn back to get the bunny, right? So, I forget the sequence of events, but once the bunny thing happens in the original one, it's all kind of wrapped up downhill from there.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Yeah,
yeah,
because in this one they have a whole other scene of like returning to normal, because they're like, oh well,
of the
just stick
dancing
around.
and stuff like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because
Yeah,
we're sorry about all that. This is when it started to get intense, but then it's like before the reveal. So there's a whole other sequence, right?
Yeah.
So, but in the end, he gets the bunny. And that's what adds this whole other layer to like getting the bunny off the ladder, because you're like, oh, is he going to push the ladder? Then, as they were successfully driving away, they see them push Ant in the lake, and then like they stop, and the gates
He didn't,
close,
yo,
and this is where
just to
it all
clarify,
lets.
he didn't push him and he threw him in.
Yeah,
Like,
it
he
all
legit
kind
was
of
like,
like, yeah,
"Boop."
good visual, by the way. They're
Yes,
like,
awesome
as they're
visual.
driving away,
Yes.
they see him get thrown in the lake, and they're like, oh my god. And this is where it all starts popping off, and it turns into like a real like cat and mouse kind of movie. Like, it legit is, because they're hiding inside this farmhouse, which is awesome, by the way. I really like the house setup. Like,
Yes.
I like that when they first get to the farm in the beginning, you see that overhead shot, so you see all the kinds of rooms, and then I was like, oh, okay, so are we gonna use the farm? I was thinking that. I was like, oh, so are we actually going to see it? And then yes, we do. Like, and then there's a painting that the couple finds, and they're like, okay, well, then they form their plan that way of escape. It's super cool. Like,
Yeah. I really love what they did with the end of this movie here. I love the action. I think,
yeah, it's very action
yeah,
focused. Yeah,
I love it because I think it deserves it, especially with the kind of antagonist that we have in this movie with this couple just trying to legit like kill you and take your child, you know?
yeah.
Like I love how there's action. Like, and then the the dad, um like he had no clue what to do. He was having a little fucking, hissy fit, little tantrum. He's like, "Oh my god, I don't know what to do." And Mackenzie Davis was like, "Yo, hey, your family's in trouble. We need you.
Yeah,
All right,
she was like,
snap
"Yo,
out of it."
she's
And
like, pull your shit together, right? Put your shit
yes,
together.
yes, dude. Like,
Get your act together. Let's do
we
this
need you
already."
here. So I really
And
love the
it's dope.
action taken. Yes,
She gets the kill in the movie. Like,
yes,
she gets the one like hammer kill with like the other dude, who's like coming to chase
yeah.
him through the
So
house. And it
so check this
man,
out. So
so how does it? Okay, in the
So,
original,
all right, so you remember how they had a babysitter, right? Which is
yes,
just some stranger, right? But
right.
in the original, that same babysitter plays a big part in the end. He plays the part of the chef, Mike, who was that third person involved. So it's the babysitter, right?
Oh,
Who's
okay,
yeah,
okay.
like in the original, that's their friend who's involved with all the kidnapping and the killings and all that stuff, right? So they don't get another chance to get away. You know what I mean? They completely they try, right? And then I think their car or something or other, something happens where their car just stops running or something like that. And then who's there to help them? But the Patty of like of the OG, and the babysitter guy, so they completely take them in like in a car, right? And they man, I forget the exact sequence of events, but they take the couple and the kid in a car. They are telling them, "Hey, this is what's gonna happen." Blah 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 blah. And they're like, "Why are you doing this to us?" And then they're like, "Oh, because you're letting us do it," and all this other stuff. So they um, take the girl out of the car and they put her in a different vehicle with the babysitter guy, and he goes away with the girl. Girl's gone, right? And then
Wow.
yeah, and then the parents stay in that car. They take them, um, uh, they take them to this quarry, right? Where earlier in the movie, it was the scene where he was screaming his lungs out, like in the original, right? You know how we
Hmm.
have a scene here with Patty in the mountains and stuff like that, and the guy screaming and all that stuff and crying. So that was originally in a quarry, right? In this like old mine quarry or whatever. So they take the couple of this quarry, dude, right? They kick him down into this quarry. They beat him up, they kick him down, and they start stoning them and shit. Like,
Oh.
yeah, like
Oh, so they
done.
fully die in
They
that
fully
OG one.
die. They fully die. They take their kid and they continue on with their
Wow. So
yes.
okay. So now I get what you're saying, because like,
Yes.
so they are two entirely different experiences.
Yes. 2 different experiences all together, and then how the
And
inaction
I
of
mean,
of just
both valid, right? Like, because like like you said, like I assume it's like the inaction was the harsh punishment of like, because you did nothing, this happened to you, right?
Yes.
It's like a
Yes.
choose your own adventure thing, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's
like,
like, hey, you did nothing to save your family at all.
yes.
You've done not a single thing to me. Like it's something along those lines. He gives like a little like like monologue about, hey, like you didn't do shit, and this is what happens to people like you. You
Yeah,
know?
and
Yeah.
that's the thesis of the film
Yeah,
essentially,
that's the
right?
whole
It's like,
theme. It's like, hey, like it's a very bleak, like a bleak kind of discussion on trust and openness of people and like how there are certain people who are just so trusting and there's others who are not and all that stuff. So it gets into that conversation, but it really is a frustrating movie to see because like along the way you're like even in the first one, I mean, like, even in this one, Mackenzie Davis' character brings up, "Hey, why are we gonna spend that much time with people we just met?" You know, so that same question is brought up in the original, and I'm like, "Yeah, why are you gonna go to this stranger's family's house? You just met them,
yeah,
and with your kid, like,
yeah, and I do like in this film, it is explained that it's something that the husband's really asking for.
yeah,
He's like, yo, he's like, I need this. You got to do this for me because of what you owe me. Like it's very that kind of vibe, right? So like I do like that. I do like that there's ultimately a reason for them to do such a stupid thing.
yeah."
And
Like I think it's the same thing on the original where it's
oh, okay.
like they're so reserved, right? That he's like, "Let's
Right.
just do this thing once, we never do this. This is exactly why we should do this,"
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
and then, like, that's exactly why you don't do that.
yeah, and like in this new one too, like I saw some people saying that it was like a cheesy kind of turn or whatever for, but like I said, as someone who hasn't seen the original, I really appreciated the
But
fact that like
but
it
cheesy
blew
tur
up.
yeah, like,
Like
cheesy
it
in what way?
I think it's because like it's
Like
McAvoy, right? He starts like he does turn like he starts to be himself and he starts to like
but,
kind
like,
of like,
I think that's what makes this one so awesome, you know what I mean?
yeah, that's what I
Like
see, right? It
because a
feels,
person like
yeah.
Patty, he's such a monster that you finally get to see the monster, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
he's having fun with it.
he's a
His friend
wolf,
tells him,
like,
"Yo, it's this is
he's a
only
wolf in
happening."
clothing, right? So you finally see the
Yeah,
wolf, and
yeah,
you like,
his
I love his silhouette, I love how big the dude got for the role,
yeah, for seemingly no reason other than to be like a cool silhouette of a killer, right? It's
yeah,
just,
man,
yo,
like,
he looks
really good,
good.
yeah.
He it's funny his that like, yeah, his friend's the one who's like, yo, it's this only happened because you play with your food too much, and
Yeah, yeah.
he's like, ah, well, whatever. And, like he's like, yeah, you should have done him in the second they got there. And it's like, yeah, that's so true. Like this is also like I love it too because it's a hubris thing too, right? Because
It
he's like,
is.
yeah, he never really thought like he'd be challenged in a way, and like
Yeah, yeah,
this
exactly.
that's why the third act is so good too, because it's like, they're going through the house that everyone's being very smart. That's like it's very smart, and
I
like
love it.
the only time they start doing dumb shit is kind of when it's very necessary, like when they're on the roof, right? And it's like, yeah, this is a little dumb, but also it was perfectly set up to where the wife like fell off the roof and died. They were going to get rid of that problem, and
That
it's
was
like,
a good
yo,
kill.
like,
Yep.
and it's smart. Like I was really appreciative. I'm like, man,
And even, like, the roof thing too, also there is it shows great character development there, with the husband. He's like, he stopped being so reserved, there's other
yeah, he
word
was like,
for it,
yo, let me break my leg to get the
Yeah, but he's
ladder.
like,
So
"Yo,
like,
like, yeah, I gotta be a man, quote, unquote," you know? He's like,
yeah,
There's the time to be a man, and the time to be a man is, like, right now when we're about to
yeah.
fucking die," you know?
What does suck though is that so in the end he's like over Patty. He has a gun. He doesn't take the shot, but in a way that sucks for his character as like oh, okay, so you're not gonna, your wife killed the guy, you're not gonna kill somebody too. She technically killed two people. She killed two
Yeah,
people in the equation,
yeah.
right? And but then you get Ant coming in for like to literally deliver the final blow of like bashing his head in with a brick, and it's like I can't lie, man, it's so
That's good shit.
satisfying.
Yeah, dude, like, yo, I think I was, like, legit, like, rooting in theater. I was like, "Yes!"
Yeah,
Because, like, especially for Ant to do it, It's like, "Dude,
yeah,
like, you've been abusing me, you kidnapped me from my you killed my parents, you kidnapped me, you cut off my tongue, you've been beating me up or doing whatever awful things to me for God knows how long, I'm not gonna let you do this to somebody else," And I'm really glad that, the kid got to do it, like, the kid actor himself, like, he didn't have much to do because of his role, but at the
right.
end there, when he needed to kind of turn into, like, a good actor, and release, like, those emotions, it was really successful. It was really impactful. Like I said, like, this one is completely different, and I think it deserves the kind of climax that it got. Like,
Yeah,
it deserved that cat and mouse game because in the original one, there was no game. Like, it was like, "Hey, I'm just playing with my food here." Like, there's no chase. They thought they got away for a second, but no, like, it was completely just bleak and nihilistic, you know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. Um,
yeah, and
that
those
human nature evil
yeah,
thing, you know?
those movies are fine, and there are
Yeah.
a place for them, and this is why we have the 2022 version. But I I like this one, man.
No, I
I like the fact
wholeheartedly
that they
like
get
this one.
away.
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
fact that they, and I think it's earned. Like I think like the payoff is earned. Like yeah, it makes you wait for it, but when it does happen, it's an actual payoff. Like it's an actual climax. Like it's action, right? It's not
Yeah.
like I can't imagine I would enjoy this movie as much if it ended in the same way. Like
Oh
if we
my
waited
dude.
all that time only for them to just like
Dude,
kind of casually kill them at the
I
end.
was scared,
Yeah,
like, it was going that way, you know what I mean? Um, and then, it didn't, which I'm very happy about. Like I said, it's 2 different movies for 2 different kinds of audiences,
right.
and I think both work and, like, in their separate ways. Uh, but I do really think that this is a perfect example. Just to wrap everything up on my end, I think this is a perfect example of a how to make a remake of a more recent feature film, right? Like this came out 2 years ago, but what you did with the story completely made it its own thing, So I
Yeah.
really appreciate that from the filmmaker, who by the way, James Watkins, I believe his name was. He directed Eden Lake, which is a super underrated, like very dark too movie, with Michael Fassbender in it. And I forgot the actress though. She's been in other movies, but they play this couple who gets like terrorized by this youth group group of like kids legit like terrorize them throughout the town. It's really like dark and really cool. And then he also did A Woman in Black with David Radcliffe, which I also thought it was a really solid movie, a very nice gothic horror film. So he has dipped his toes in horror before, and I think those movies have been successful. And this movie is also a success because he knows what works. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that this remake went to the hands of somebody who was able to do what they were able to do. And what's cool too is that the original writers helped out with this script as well. So,
Oh,
yes. So
I
they
like that.
seem to
Yeah.
also be like, "You know what? Like that shit was super depressing. Let's change this up
Yeah.
and let's
Yeah,
make
because
this more of, an action film?"
yeah, because from our talk, it seems like it's not that just the third act was different. Because
It's
that's one thing, right? It's
everything.
another
Yeah.
thing, like it's one thing to just change the ending, but it's literally like through the characters. Like it's the core of the movie itself that's
Yes.
been changed, right?
Exactly.
Characters are different, they act different, they say different things, they do
Yep.
different things, and then it leads to a different conclusion because, like we said, it's a choose your own adventure thing, right? Because they do stuff. The nature of it is means that they get out alive. It's in one direction they don't do anything, they die, and then
They
this one
die. They
they
do
are they
something,
are proactive and they
they
live.
live.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's the
I
perfect
like
way
it.
to end this conversation.
I
And
like it.
for
I like
those,
it.
like I said, the original Speak No Evil, folks, is on Shutter. You can go catch that now. But I highly recommend skipping that bleak, very depressing
Yeah,
story
just
and
wait for this one.
yeah, go
Yeah.
spend your money. Don't even wait for it. Go spend your money. Go watch this because honestly, this movie I didn't expect it to be this good. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed the movie watching experience. It was a
Yeah.
better overall viewing experience in comparison to the original. Yes, there were dumb things done, but as Tex mentioned, you got to do dumb shit in order to progress a story sometimes in horror. And I think this movie did it in a very, very smart and like awesome way. I really enjoyed this movie, and I think you guys out there will definitely enjoy this one as well because it's not just like horror. You know, it's definitely one of those more human horror stories where I think it's
Right.
it's more relatable than like a ghost story or something like that. So, folks, go catch Speak No Evil in theaters now. And once again, thank you so much for listening. This has been episode 209 of The Morgue, the official CorpseFeed podcast. Once again, I am Arturo Padilla, the guy behind the face. And with me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. The big shout out goes to Delvirus for all the art you've seen in front of you over the last 8 years. And a big shout out goes to you guys for listening. We have 208 episodes wherever you get your streaming. Go like, subscribe, and share. Go give us some stars. Go give us a review. We would highly appreciate it. And it won't cost you a single thing. Just give us a nice review and you're good. And go check us out in the socials. Go like, subscribe, and share there. And most importantly, go to YouTube. Subscribe to CorpseFeed where you can see this show dropping and other spoiler-free horror movie reviews. And once again, folks, it is a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.